where you'll have an opportunity to participate in a small group Q&A with one of the panelists. No need for you to get out of your chairs. We'll teleport you into your virtual rooms. Before we get started, we need just to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording this session, so those who are not able to join us can view the event later. We encourage you to use the chat area to ask questions during today's session. If you open up your chat area by hovering at the bottom or top of your screen and simply click that chat item. So let's go ahead and practice now by answering the following question. What's one word you would use to describe the past 7 months? Challenging, interesting, dumpster fire, exhausting. Amen there. I think we're all pretty much feeling the COVID fatigue from the last several months. So during Q&A times, as well as in the breakout rooms, we encourage you to ask questions and share experiences and ideas. Likewise, in the off chance we have some folks on the line that are looking to network, please, feel free to use that chat to reach out, let folks know you're networking, what you're looking for, and you can chat then privately to then set up a session. And finally, if we were face-to-face, this is the part of the housekeeping slide where we tell you where the nearest bathrooms are located. However, we hope you already know where those are. All right, so we have quite a few people with us today, so formal introductions are not quite possible. In order to help everyone see who is here, as I call out the names of the groups present, please type in the organization that you're with in the chat window. So we do have a number of folks here representing our local companies. In fact, when I pulled the data yesterday, we had 38 individuals representing our local companies registered. We have a number of people from our local colleges. We also have about 12 individuals registered representing our K-12 schools and local CISAs. And then we have a goodly number of folks representing our economic development, regional alliances like MTech and so forth. And I see folks are using that chat, so thank you. So if you're watching in the chat, we can see we've got folks from Kimberly High School, IIBA is here, Microsoft Teals, we've got UW Green Bay on the call, Amplify Oshkosh. So thank you all for joining us today. So a little bit of information about us. Many of you may have heard of us as the New IT Alliance. This past year, however, we've been busy rebranding. So in addition to the many efforts the Alliance is engaged with, like I mentioned, we decided to rebrand, recognizing that IT is not just in the IT department anymore. It is, as many of you know, it's moving out into manufacturing, marketing, and many other areas within our local companies. And the more we move towards an Industry 4.0, the more those typical IT roles are going to move outside of the standard IT department. Also, while continuing our efforts around the K-12 talent pipeline, we are also expanding our efforts to the professional level to help promote overall tech health of the region. And as part of the rebranding, we've identified several pillars that the Alliance will be working in moving forward. We do have efforts already underway in several of these pillars, some of which you'll learn about today. However, given our resources, we're focused on growing efforts in the collaborate pillar, starting with developing opportunities to increase collaboration between our local colleges and our regional employers. And we're working on some things, some really exciting opportunities there that we expect to be launching in the early spring. So stay tuned. And of course, speaking of resources, we'd like to take a minute to thank all of our investors. They make everything we do possible through their generous support. Many of our executive level sponsors are founding members of the Alliance. And in addition to their financial contributions, they functioned as our board of directors these past 3 years. Our strategic and general members are equally important as they often help out on our task forces and committees. As the new Digital Alliance works towards becoming a standalone 501c3, we'll be turning to our broader investor pool to sit on our board of directors and help define our future direction. Now on to the fun stuff. So taking a look at the state of IT in Northeast Wisconsin. While the Alliance's new mission focuses on promoting the tech health of the region, talent does play a significant role in that health. If our companies cannot find the tech skilled talent they need, their bottom line will be impacted. At the same time, it's important to recognize that the tech space is globally competitive. An IT worker can easily reside in Hortonville and work for a company on the coast. Therefore, it's important to have a three-dimensional approach to the pipeline. We need to develop, attract, and retain the talent in Northeast Wisconsin for our local companies. So as we look to develop the talent, it's important to introduce students to an IT early in order to build interest. The good news is the interest in IT careers is growing, as can be seen by the CompTIA Youth Opinions of Careers in IT study that they conducted back in 2017. Students are aware that IT pays well, which is a good thing, and provides opportunities for creative work. On the flip side, however, we still have some work to do around the negative perceptions of IT, as a large number of students are continuing to express that they view IT as a job where we're going to be sitting alone in front of a computer all day long. Growing interest in IT is also reflected locally, with a 33% increase in the number of high school students taking computer science type courses here in Northeast Wisconsin. Data was collected by the new Digital Alliance's Digital Learning Opportunity Survey in March of 2020. I'm going to pause here and mention we have a handful of surveys that we conducted in March, and as you can imagine, this was the same time where all of the shelter-in-place orders were starting to occur. So that as organizations were starting to focus on how do we move our students or our employees to work remotely, that did impact our ability to collect as much data as we have in the past years. However, we do thank the school districts who provided the information for us this year, as it's been able to give us some the year-on-year comparisons for a number of items. So, as mentioned, this is the second year that this full study was conducted. We did do a pilot of a subset of questions in 2017, but this is the second year of the full study. So while we can see overall enrollment is up, gender parity is still a ways off, with gender starting kind of following national trends. So female enrollment in our computer science courses is really on par with national trends at all stages of the pipeline. And we are reporting out what the students and the schools report to us. So you can see that between the 2 years, we do have 25% of our students in year 2 whose gender was not reported, or they identify as something non-binary. We also took a look at which classes were the most popular among the students. Perhaps a sign of school districts taking a more active role in creating their own content and courses. The homegrown computer science courses were the most popular option in 2019 to 20, which replaced the mobile app development on the top 5 courses. Game development continues to be popular, especially among the boys, which mirrors the CompTIA's finding where they learned that 65% of boys can see themselves working in game development. Looking at course enrollments by gender, however, we see females tend to gravitate more towards courses with more graphical content, such as web design and mobile app development. And then courses with the smallest portion of females tend to be more technical in nature, such as networking and intro to hardware. Districts also provided their input on the top challenges they face in growing their computer science offerings. Lack of qualified computer science teachers and lack of student interest were listed as the top 2 challenges that they face. So regional efforts are underway to increase the student and female interest in IT. In 2017, Microsoft Teals came to the region. They're working with volunteers from our local companies to deliver computer science coursework at the high school level. And Northeast Wisconsin has a large number of Teals high schools, which has been growing year on year thanks to their efforts. And it's thanks to these programs that a lot of our schools are able to offer AP level computer science classes. The Teals program also helps to upskill teachers in computer science, helping to increase the number of qualified teachers in the region. Also in 2017, the New Digital Alliance launched our new Connect IT event. This annual event connects high school students with regional employers, IT professionals, and local colleges offering IT programs. And in the past 3 years, we've connected with over 1,200 students at this event. In addition to the new Connect IT event, we're also delivering classroom talks about IT careers. We organize a regional computer science advisory board, which meets quarterly, and this group brings together school district administrators and teachers, higher ed, and local IT leaders to discuss how to support school districts in delivering high-quality computer science education. In the spring, we launched a K-12 task force. We did that just in time for the pandemic to hit. So we'll actually be relaunching that task force in the spring of 2021. The K-12 task force is designed to take a deeper dive into what tools and help teachers need to help excite the students about IT careers. WIT Wisconsin is also engaging with youth through their WIT for Girls activities. They have a program which connects female IT professionals with girls for a fun 2-hour coding workshop. And over the past couple of years, they've been able to connect with several hundred middle school aged girls. And then Wisconsin Department of Labor is also offering youth apprenticeships in a number of career areas, including IT. In fact, one of our new Digital Alliance interns is also a youth apprentice for one of our local companies. The demand for IT opportunities among the students is much greater than the supply of positions within companies. So this is something that we need our local companies to help out with. The majority of students in the IT apprenticeships are finding themselves working for their local school district, in contrast to their peers in the manufacturing youth apprenticeships who are working for local companies. This program provides great opportunities for companies to connect with the next generation of IT talent. And some of our companies who've been taking advantage of this opportunity have had great success converting their youth apprentices into interns and then hiring them post-graduation from their college degrees, at which point they've got a resource who already has 6 years of experience in their company. Moving on to the college data, when we look at the national data, the number of college grads in computer science and information science has grown dramatically over the past 10 years. This is good news, particularly for metro areas that are able to attract outside talent. Locally, we also see the growth in the number of students in IT programs, though not nearly at the same level seen nationally. Since most students graduating from one of our regional schools stays in the region, and Northeast Wisconsin does not attract large numbers of talent from the outside, we continue to face a talent gap. This data is collected annually from our local higher eds by the New Digital Alliance, is a survey we provide to them. Similar to the high school data, the higher ed survey shows that female enrollment in regional IT programs is roughly 23%. And data from UW Oshkosh, which we don't have presented here, indicates greater female enrollment in those less technical programs, such as interactive web management, where approximately 53% of the students are female. On the flip side, programs with the smallest portion of females tend to be more technical in nature, such as the pure computer science programs, where we see roughly 7% female enrollment. Among our four-year colleges, we see computer science is by far the most common program by enrollment, with information systems as the second most popular program. In between, you see the master's level program in data science, which is newly launched and is already seeing significant interest. The most popular programs at the technical college level are software developer and network specialist. While most of our college students remain in region, not all of them do. Additionally, approximately 30% of our college freshmen are undecided. So there's a need to connect students not only with the careers within IT, but also with our local employers so they can learn about the technology that you're using. And that much of what we use here in Northeast Wisconsin is similar to what is used in other regions. So in order to connect these students with local employers and educate them on the types of jobs available, the New Digital Alliance launched our Tech Talk series. This event brings local companies on campus to talk about leading edge technology that they're using. And our 2020 events, so this second year looks a little lower because we were required to cancel some of those events due to the COVID-19 outbreak. We do plan on picking the series back up in the spring in a virtual format. In 2019, we launched the new collaborative intern event. This event connected 29 interns from member companies with nonprofits in the community. Our goal was to connect these interns who were coming from, many of whom were coming from outside of Northeast Wisconsin, as well as outside of the state, connect them with our young professional organizations and others, so they can learn about what the region and all the opportunities we have here, at the same time providing them the opportunity to give back by helping a local nonprofit. The Alliance's Higher Ed Committee connects deans and associate deans overseeing IT programs from the region's universities and technical colleges, and they meet monthly to discuss how to collaborate and improve IT education in the region. They also participate in the new Connect IT event to engage with local high school students and educate them about their programs. Now moving on to professional data, looking at the national level, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, employment in the computer and information technology occupations is projected to grow 11% from 2019 to 2029. This is much faster than the average for all other occupations. Likewise, the IT occupations are projected to add about 530,000 new jobs in that time frame, primarily from greater emphasis on cloud computing and the collection and storage of big data and information security. The Bureau of Labor Statistics also reports that the median annual wage for computer and information technology occupations was $88,000 in May of 2019, which is significantly higher than the median annual wage for all occupations, which sits right at about $40,000 a year. So that's great, prognosis for those who are going into the IT field. Likewise, as we look at the data that unemployment data here since the beginning of the year, we can see that demand for IT workers continues to remain strong despite the challenging national job market. In January 2020, the national unemployment rate hovered around 4.1%, while IT was at approximately 3%. And that data is coming from a Forbes article referencing Bureau of Labor Statistics data. In April, the national unemployment skyrocketed to 15%, while IT unemployment rose to about 2.8%. And then now, according to CompTIA's IT unemployment tracker, they just recently reported the national unemployment at 7.6 and the IT unemployment at 3.5 for the closing out the month of September. So job availability in IT continues to outperform that in the general workforce. Locally, the IT job market is also continues to hold its own. There are a few companies who are reducing their IT workforce. However, many others, such as SmartIS International, are continuing to hire. CompTIA and DICE reports, they both report an increase in national demand around cybersecurity analysts, likely attributed to an ongoing increase in cyber threats, which we'll hear about a little later. And CompTIA also indicates an increase in demand for system analysts, and DICE is indicating an increase in demand for certain type of developers. These trends are also mirrored by local data. In the spring, we launched our first ever IT professional community survey. And while unfortunately we didn't get the data back that we were, the amount of data back that we were hoping, the data did correlate with what we're also hearing anecdotally from our local companies. So while we couldn't use the data to draw any firm conclusions, through the sharing it with the anecdotal, combining it with the anecdotal data, what we can tell you is that companies are listing developer roles, cybersecurity, and data analyst as extremely difficult roles to fill. And these are also, not only on the survey, but also these are the roles that we are seeing most frequently posted on their job boards. In our survey, we also asked them to list the top 5 factors they think are contributing to the IT talent shortage. And looking at that data, 3 common themes were apparent. First off is the national competition for IT talent. Being in IT, I can live here and work anywhere. Lack of broader IT classes outside of just coding being offered in K-12. And lack of awareness and interest in the IT careers being the third theme. These correlate very closely to the data that came out of the 2015 survey that was done by the Northeast Wisconsin Educational Resource Alliance. That survey, which was actually founded the New Digital Alliance, indicated lack of awareness and understanding of IT jobs as the top contributor, with 95% of the respondents indicating that as the #1 reason. In second place, they listed interest from high school students, or lack of interest from high school students, as the second largest reason. Between the 2 surveys, they clearly indicate that there's still work to do around increasing awareness of IT careers and removing some of those misconceptions. Likewise, the 2015 study asked employers to provide one big idea that they felt would grow the digital ecosystem in Northeast Wisconsin. From that survey, development of a collaborative marketing campaign was the top idea. When we asked the same question of our companies earlier this year, they responded with connecting middle and high school faculty to company IT departments as their top idea. We want to thank all the companies who completed the new IT professional community survey this past spring. We are working to improve the survey and are looking forward to sharing the 2021 data with you at our next TechTalent Summit. One of the New Digital Alliance's goals is to help retain talent in region. To help with that effort, we share unsolicited resumes we receive from college students and IT professionals looking for their next opportunity, whether it's their first internship or their next career move. Over the past couple of years, we've seen an increase in the number of resumes we've been able to share with our investors. Our primary focus for the past 3 years has been to build interest and awareness in the educational pipeline, again, kind of coming out of that survey data that we've seen. At the professional level, we've provided opportunities for employers to create awareness of their brand and IT opportunities through New Connect IT event and Tech Talks. These events have also provided opportunities for the individual employee to grow their presentation and leadership skills. Our quarterly meetings and monthly newsletter create awareness of the regional digital ecosystem. And our website, we share tech-focused events, and under our Explore IT section, we have information about career pathways for reskilling and upskilling, as well as an IT professional page, which lists many of the networking organizations in the region, such as WIT, Amplify Oshkosh, CompTIA, and IIBA, to name a few, all of whom provide professional development and networking opportunities for our digital staff. These initiatives look to help attract and retain talent in the region, grow and upskill existing talent, and promote our local employers. With the rebranding this year, we're exploring opportunities to grow our efforts in the professional arena, and we'll be launching initiatives to increase collaboration between colleges and corporate IT departments, as well as partnerships with through partnership with the New Launch Alliance, look to increase innovation in the region. So moving forward, we still have more demand than supply for IT talent, and we're continuing to do the same things and expect different results is not going to work. In order to close the talent gap, we need to be aware of national trends, and we need to be thinking outside the box. The region is not keeping up with the national trends. We need to keep focusing on attracting more people into the IT arena. And a couple of specific opportunities to help close the tech gap include focusing on attracting and retaining more females into the field. This is helped by the fact that more females than males are seeking college degrees, which is a trend that's projected to continue for the next several years. And we can see by US Department of Education, we're sitting at about 60% of collegiate enrollment is female, only 40% male. Likewise, attracting a more racially diverse students into IT programs as well as into our tech workforce can significantly help close that gap, particularly as the general population continues to become more diverse, which should help us in attracting that diversity of face into our organizations. Both opportunities are good for your overall diversity as well as within your organizations. And of course, we know that increasing diversity helps teams and companies perform at a higher level and be more innovative. So what can we all be doing to help make a difference? Well, start looking at things today in order to be able to attract the talent tomorrow. So with that, get involved with an IT organization such as the Alliance, Women in Technology, Amplify, or any number of the others that exist out there. Connect with local schools, do classroom talks, join their computer science advisory boards, explore your corporate culture. Is it welcoming to a diverse population? If not, start making changes today. Start an IT youth apprenticeship or internship program at your organization. And of course, you can join the New Digital Alliance and get involved in any number of our activities to help change all these numbers and improve the tech talent pipeline for our companies. All right, I'm going to stop here and pause. Do we have any questions on the data that was shared? Okay. I'm not seeing my tab, so I can't go in there. Okay, going to the chat. Oops, pull that back over here. Any questions? No? Okay. So now we will move on to our panel discussion. And I want to introduce our panelists at this time. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. So panelists, please share your name, your company, and your role, and then one important lesson you've learned from the shift to remote work. And Tina, we're going to start with you.
Here we go. I had to unmute. Thank you so much, Kim. That was great information. I am still digesting it. So the transition here, I am the owner and CEO of Change Management Communication Center here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I am a podcaster and executive coach, and really transformation is my thing. So whatever leaders are up to and want to create a change, I'm right there to help them out. And so is our team. Let's see. What is something that I've noticed with the increased amount of online work that we're doing and online connections and virtual meetings? We did an awful lot of it to begin with. One thing that I've learned is I'm continuing to learn. Like there's new tips, new tricks, new techniques that help us address everything that's yucky about working online all the time and connecting and being social online. So I love that we are evolving and adapting and being creative and getting more done through technology. I think um, some of our preconceived notions about what working online would be have been turned out to be false. And some of the things that we never thought were going to be a problem sure as heck are tripping us up. So, so I am enjoying really untangling everything that comes with it.
Well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Carly.
Hi there. I'm Carly Kroll. I'm the Director of Education at New Resources Consulting down here in Milwaukee. And something that I've learned from being a remote worker, my previous company for 2 years, was having a schedule and a ritual is something that was really important to having that balance of working from home in my case, or sometimes I was traveling and it was working elsewhere. And in order to not have that exhaustion at the end of the day from all of the Zoom calls or virtual calls and sitting at your computer, is also taking breaks. That's one of my other big takeaways, is allowing yourself to take breaks.
Good tip. All right, John.
Hi, I'm John Drosdick with New Resources Consulting here in Milwaukee. I'm the Director of Recruiting and been with the firm for 10 years as of last Friday. So just celebrated that anniversary. I guess the biggest, one of the takeaways is really patience is a virtue, as everybody's working online and getting used to that, and just being able to be patient with folks and to stay productive.
Excellent, thank you. And congratulations on the work anniversary.
Oh, thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, Bob Turner, I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at UW-Madison. I've been in the business for a long time, ever since information security was paper files in locked drawers. And the thing that I gain about remote work is the drawers are different and the papers are a little more complex than they used to be. But day in and day out, it's that routine that keeps us, working hard. One of the things that one of the other panelists said was you have to learn how to take breaks, and I just wish my schedule would allow me time to do that. I will tell you though that it is hyper productive in the remote world, and I know that my team has been exceptionally productive and innovative too. So that's one of the great things about having to change from your normal routine.
Well, thank you. And Jerry. Oh, Jerry, are you muted?
There we go. So I'm Jerry Eastman. As Bob and I work together, in fact, we just had breakfast the other day. We talk about things and what the future holds. And I like to think about that I'm flying the plane as we build it. WICTRA is a very, very unique organization, probably one of two in the United States at most. We are about collaboration. And I met Kim through a friend of ours, and we both see how important it is to work together. And what New works on is a little bit different than what we work on, but at the same time, many of those things work together. And we're all in this together. And as we learn how to work from home and social distance from our others that are working from home, it Bob wrote chaos in the chat. I think that's very true. And it really depends upon which phone I answer or how quickly I can transition to another task. And I never seem to get enough done in a day. So, but it's really exciting to still serve. And you'll see that, I served a long time as well.
Thank you, Jerry. And I certainly agree. I think we're all feeling the quickening pace of work that we're dealing with in this pandemic. So I am going to stop sharing my screen now. So as the speakers start to share and answer the questions, we can see their faces. If you are in gallery view and wish to see speaker view, there's a toggle at the upper right of your screen that allows you to switch between the two. So I'm going to kick off a question here for John. We have a number of people on the call who are from our local corporations, and not only are they looking to recruit talent, but our higher eds and educational pipeline are looking to prepare folks to come out into the workforce. And in this remote work environment, many of them might be curious as to understand, what changes have you seen in recruiting and interviewing as a result of the move to remote work? And what advice do you have for job seekers in this kind of environment?
Well, so, we've recruited either via the phone or in person for a lot of years. And I guess the biggest thing that's changed is the ability to see folks with the advent of Zoom and Teams, which is really a very new thing. So that's added the dimension, allowing us to be able to take folks, all the way from the beginning to the end of the recruiting process. So we spend a lot of time interacting with candidates to make sure that they're going to do a good job interviewing in person, really like they were there at that client site. So it's changed, but yet it hasn't changed that much. So some of the very basics of interviewing and getting doing a good job in an interview have really transpired from in person to just over the Zoom or Team platforms.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to jump to, so we're talking about recruiting and stuff. There can be some sensitive information shared when recruiting. And we've heard things, so this is actually directed more towards Bob. We've heard challenges of Zoom bombing, especially early on in the outbreak of COVID. So, and Zoom has therefore been in the news with some security issues. Is this still a problem? And what precautions should we be taking to ensure our calls are secure? And do the other web-based tools have similar issues?
I'll say that Zoom had their moment of epiphany, and they secured their tool, and their mindset changed a little bit. It was no longer how many people can we reach with Zoom. It's how can we reach them so that they feel safe and secure while they're online conducting their business. There's almost all of the tools have layers of security settings where you can have a totally private conversation to you can just simply have a wide public broadcast like this one is. So all of the tools, and frankly, we do use just about every single one of them at UW-Madison. We are using Zoom. Recently, we inked a larger contract to allow the Academy to have access to it. And we also have WebEx, but we also have WebEx meetings and WebEx events. So there's multiple versions of those, and each one of them are tailored to the security and operability concerns. But we also have, in a given day, I'm on Blue Jeans, I'm on Google Meet, I'm on Zoom, I am on just about every collaboration tool known, because diversity is UW-Madison, the diversity in the technology, diversity in the use cases. I think the thing that worries me the most about the tools is how are we handling the human side of security? So for example, we have heard of a Zoom call that went bad because one of the students gave out the password to the meeting and the class was Zoom bombed. So yes, it still happens, but it's because of a human interaction and what we call lack of basic cyber hygiene.
And thank you for that. Yes, and definitely something we all need to be cognizant of moving forward, that we're not sharing our passwords for Zoom or for our email.
You know, Kim, if I can add something to that, you know, we use Zoom in our organization, and there's only two of us that can host it, so we have control.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't see a name or a phone number that I recognize, they stay in the waiting room, and or I kick them out. Because we have a closed session and we do it by invite only, that helps us relegate who we allow into the meeting. And let's say one of our principals wants to have their deputy attend the meeting, then we make sure that handoff has been done. And that's something like Bob and I have done even, and others, so that they still get somebody in the meeting and that's covering their chair.
Yeah, I think the other thing we have to remember is that remote, for most of us, even on this call, and you can tell by the backgrounds, we're working from home. So we're letting people into our house. We're letting them into our audio space, into our visual space, and understanding that, you know, you deserve some level of privacy. There are tools out there. So Zoom was one of the first to come out with the hidden background. You know, you see people that are conducting their teleconference on the beach when it's clear they're in, you know, northern Colorado or someplace like that where there are no beaches. And you can do things like that to obscure the environment you're in. But it's also that mute button. That mute button is very, very important so that you can have those, you know, moments of conversation, maybe to others within your space. And that also goes when you're in a normal corporate space environment. That button is a very good filter to use.
Well, thank you for that. And that's a good reminder too, the things that we have hanging up behind us can give things away that we might not want others to know. And I'm sure we'll get into more of that as we delve into some more of the cyber questions moving forward. For now, I want to move on. Carly, you know, you work as the Director of Education at New Resources Consulting. How are you guys handling, you know, quick questions internally? You know, so do you use Slack, Teams?
So at New Resources Consulting, they use Teams. I think having organizations that have the Microsoft Office suite online, Teams is often the most convenient because it's built into your subscription. So everyone has an account. They're able to then send just a little chat to each other. We schedule all of our meetings to have a Teams meeting opportunity for calls like this rather than using Zoom. So it's all through Teams. And I know that other organizations I've worked for as well, that when it's an Outlook company and that's the brand that they use for their email, that Teams tends to be the most seamless process for working in terms of short little communication and creating multiple channels in Teams, so that maybe you have like a marketing team channel or like a, you know, a Midwest team channel. And so they're able to have their own group chats as well as individual one-on-one chats.
Thank you. And have you found, you know, as we're talking about virtual work, does it help that you're all on one single platform for internal communications?
I think it does, in terms of, you know, where you're expected to be checking, because if people are remote and it's a dispersed team, there's an expectation that you're constantly available. And if you have multiple platforms to check, then there's the chance that you miss a message and it could look as if you're not being productive or you're not doing your job, when really it's that you're trying to juggle too many platforms at a time. So I think having one platform for your main communication helps to prevent that and make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So meeting etiquette, Tina, this one's going to go to you. As we work together internally or remotely, what do you suggest as some best practices for meeting etiquette? You know, you and I had a conversation too about how meeting virtually like this has even changed how we read each other, and some of the repercussions of constantly working in a virtual environment. You know, could you share some of that conversation as well?
Sure, absolutely. So there are some things that I look for and encourage others to look for when we join um, a virtual meeting environment, a virtual conference room or a connection, right? So this online workspace, we need to enter it and welcome each other. So that little bit of introduction and informal communication when you enter is a way to build some rapport with the people you're meeting with during a time when we are all a little bit distant, a little bit removed. It helps if you can maybe consider exaggerating your emotions, right? Your facial expressions, your gestures. If you're the one talking, you're the one bringing the energy to the room. And when you're listening, it's helpful for everybody, especially when you have the Brady Bunch view, not the speaker view, that people are really engaged and looking at their computer, paying attention to the content, maybe nodding their head or raising their hand along with chatting. It helps build community and rapport. We're missing that. What I notice with online meetings, there are a couple of things going on. One, we're not receiving all the nonverbal cues that we're accustomed to receive. So when that occurs, we're spending, our unconscious mind is just worrying, right? Like it's going, what's going on? What's going on? Are they happy? Are they not happy? Is this good news? Is this bad news? Is this something I need to know, not need to know? So we're spending a lot of energy that we're not even aware we're spending by trying to pay attention. There's also a lot of online stimulus. So I like to encourage people when they enter the meeting room to go ahead and get rid of as much of that stuff as you can. Turn off all other apps. Throw your telephone on top of the refrigerator if you need to, right? And then change the view for the meeting to speaker view. I encourage everybody to do that because one thing that I've learned during this time is I'm not comfortable seeing so much of myself. And when I turn it on speaker view, I don't care what I look like anymore. It's like going to work every day. I get ready in the morning. This is what I look like. And I don't know what I look like the rest of the day, right? But people engage with me and I appreciate that. And I'm not worried about how I look or whether people are understanding my expression or not. It just kind of comes a little naturally. If you need to rev yourself up for a meeting to be able to express some emotion and passion and energy, have a conversation with somebody you're really close to. If you're walking into a cold room with people you're not very close to, or perhaps you're just burned out and tired, step outside, have a conversation with a neighbor or a friend, call somebody, listen to some high energy music, whatever does it for you. Take a few minutes before your meeting to go in with the energy that your team deserves. Those are some things that I look for. I also encourage everybody to know whether or not the meeting's being recorded. And if you find yourself being distracted, gracefully exit. There are too many meetings that we're all part of, and if somebody is distracted, it's noticeable to everybody else, just like it would be in a meeting room. And if that meeting leader isn't taking care of that, you need to be responsible for your doggone self and get out. if you're really that distracted or can't pay attention. That's
Thank you.
kind of a tip. Yeah, a top list.
Yeah, good tips. And I know you talked about emoting. I feel like I'm emoting too when I do go out in public, because we're wearing face masks now.
Oh,
and so reading the face, you really only have the eyes to go off of anymore. So it's we're spending extra energy there too, I think, trying to not only read others but be read ourselves.
Yes.
In this new environment we find ourselves in.
Right. I just hope all my laugh lines are like pointing up, so it looks like I'm smiling. Yeah.
I think we're gonna go over to Jerry with this one. Jerry, you and I talked about with this remote work environment we're in, and what that has meant to our cyber safety and a number of cyber attacks. Can you share some information? What are you seeing related to, have cyber attacks increased? What types of cyber attacks are prevalent? What do we need to be aware of in that space as we work at home, and we're no longer within our corporate or school district firewall?
I was gonna pass it to Bob, but I'll jump on this one. Phishing is still, it's an oldie but a goodie. Hackers are notoriously lazy, so they say, and phishing is just something that they can send in so many different ways using what we call bots. And Bob, or somebody else jump in as well. So we have to continually talk with our folks, our teams, and just remind them if it looks fishy or it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Be careful, cursor over the address and see if it looks weird. There are folks out there, such as myself or others, that can do forensics on an email as long as we have the original email, and we can tell you whether or not it's malicious. Certainly, we'd love to have that as part of our database. There's a lot of stuff going on with COVID, a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of scams even with the elections right now. And our phone here at home, we don't even pick it up anymore on our home line because it's just ridiculous how many phone calls we get that are, robot calls. We run call filters on our cell phones. Every carrier now provides that. That's something that you can do to help protect yourself. I think the biggest one is, if you have the ability, use VPN when you're on critical websites such as online banking or something like that. Because that's, your crown jewels, if you will. Is there anything else I'm missing? Anybody from the field that want to chime in?
Jerry, I've got a question for you. This is Tina. I heard you say we'd love to have that email on our database. If we get a suspicious email, is it a good idea to send it to your organization?
You can. What we need is the original copy, and there's a way to do that. I have folks that can do the forensics on it very quickly.
Okay.
But we would send it through our Gmail account or a different account so that it potentially wouldn't be compromised. There's a way you can actually connect to us on our website, and it's at info@witcher.org. And I have some capabilities that might take a little while. If it's in your organization, typically the ones that are leaning ahead will have a button on your Outlook bar that will say report a phishing email.
Yes.
And it'll go right into those folks that can handle it, and they need to know about it. That would be your first thing. At home, it's a little different.
Okay. And I have one more question that I have a million questions, but I'm going to ask one more. The question that I have is, I do use VPN as often as I can. There are some occasions where I've been using my cell phone as a hotspot. Is that secure or not secure?
I would say if you're in a secure environment like at home and you're on, you're on Wi-Fi, which mine are right now, you're fine, because as long as your network is protected, you're in good shape. The place that you have to be really careful is when you're in an open Wi-Fi setting, like a cafe or something like that, that doesn't require a password. Bad guys can sit in there and basically hijack your traffic with various devices, and they can spoof whatever you're looking at, like Facebook, and steal everything that's in your phone. I use a VPN. I like the one that I have. It's relatively inexpensive, and it allows me to VPN from my cell phones, especially when I'm like doing online baking with our corporate accounts, regardless of whether I'm in a secure environment or not.
Okay.
So I'm gonna echo that, Jerry's correct on the things that he was saying, but I'm gonna ask you all a very difficult question. Tina, on your hotspot, do you have a password?
Yes, I do. And when I use my hotspot, I do not connect to the Wi-Fi. I just use my
Okay,
whatever, the 5G.
all right.
Yeah.
So everybody else who has a home wireless environment, did you change from the factory set password?
I know we did.
So I'm seeing a couple of heads shaking north and south, but I'm seeing a couple of going east and west, kind of in, you can tell by the eyes. They're saying, "Oh, I never did that."
Please tell me your IP address.
I'm sorry, my IP address. It's one of many.
So why would you have to
we have to
change that?
understand that when we are just doing our own personal communications, what we're placing at risk is our own personal identity. Your digital footprint is out there. When you are connecting to your corporate environment through your home network, and if you have a home wireless router, then that just kind of complicates the picture just a little bit. You've left holes in the garden hose that is the information that you're trying to transfer back and forth to work. Yes, VPNs are awesome. Yes, there's a lot of great solutions out there. If your corporate VPN is accessible to you, I would say just go ahead and use that. But always remember, anytime you have a transfer between any component of the network, so my laptop to my home wireless to the corporate network, every time there's a hole in there, that's a place where data can leak out. So you have to try to make sure that you're keeping a solid conduit between you and where your data should be.
For those that don't realize it, every router that is produced, that admin user ID and admin password is available on the open internet, every one of them. So if it's by model number. So the bad guys have that list. So if you haven't changed it, good luck. I feel for you when it happens, but please do that.
So now we have everybody thoroughly freaked out, which is good because October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So Bob, I think you might have had something to share, so I'll let you do that. But then as you wrap up that, I do have a question for you too that I'd like you to kind of roll into, and that's, are there threats or challenges you're seeing specific to the educational industry?
Well, so that's an awesome question, and I'll get to that in just a second. The thing that just to add on about home security and passwords is, that long complex password with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back. That's not necessarily helpful, because what do you end up doing? You end up writing that down somewhere, and it's usually in a place where you don't want to have it. Have some sort of a password vaulting piece of software out there, and there's a lot of good ones out there that are relatively inexpensive. But also make sure that it's a password you can remember. So here's my recommendation. 4-character words, put 4 of them together. You ready? Cats, dogs, pigs, cows. You can put them in any order you want, and that will confuse a lot of people. You can replace the S's with $signs, and that'll confuse people. But really, it's the length. If you're choosing a 16-character password length, you're choosing a very strong password that is very difficult to break. Now, on to the what is higher education seeing. We are seeing an awful lot of the scam phishing type activity, but we're also seeing a lot of malicious code that is being transferred back and forth, because in education you're out to learn, so you go to a lot of different websites, and some of those websites are gift givers, and some of those websites are nice and secure. So being conscious of where you go is a defense mechanism, but every time you're out there surfing, you're registering with a service, you're giving over your personal identity to a textbook organization. If you don't know anything about them, you're kind of rolling the dice just a little bit. So know who you're talking to, know where you're going to get the information, know that it is on a securable connection, and access that secured connection wherever possible. Dealing with your banks, if your bank has a VPN, use their VPN. If the bank has other tools and software available, let's go ahead and use that. Just be mindful of the fact that, again, like I said, wherever you leave a hole, that's where data can leak in and leak out.
Thank you, Bob.
One of the tools I'll just mention very quickly is 2-factor authentication.
Yes.
If you can do that and you're comfortable with it, by all means, you probably should. It's just another layer of security and mitigation of risk to yourselves.
Great. So a lot of what we've been talking about is behaviors, and behavior, set of behaviors leads us into, develops a culture, so we start talking about a culture of safety, but I want to actually take this question in a slightly different direction. So John, what are some specific practices in remote work to be aware of, whether it's something to do or something to avoid, that will help us build a strong culture within an organization when we can't be co-located?
Right. Well, I guess the biggest thing is the camera is always on, right? And so if you're on a call, you're on a video call like this, just be aware of the fact that others can see what's behind you, what's next to you, what you're doing, that type of thing, and it's a bit hard to hide. So we have kind of twofold. So we have, my staff is mainly remote. We have some folks coming into the office, but we've really gone remote since middle of March. So what we're doing with folks that are remote is our daily stand-up. So very similar to any IT project, we do a 15-minute stand-up every day, and then we do a more detailed meeting twice a week where we go into the different opportunities that we have that we're working on. And to some extent, it's still the same, a lot of the same issues that we had before when we were all in the office, the fatigue of too many meetings and, that kind of thing. And so a lot of the same practices that you would have in any kind of in-person, best practices you would have in any kind of in-person meeting, go for any type of a virtual meeting as well. So I start those stand-ups or the larger meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays with a personal segue. So, a quick, what's the best thing that's happened, in your personal life over the last, 48 hours, that kind of thing. So trying to lighten the mood a little bit. It's interesting. It's, it's quick. It's always amazing to me how quickly you run out of things to say about your personal life and those kind of scenarios. But anyway, so that's a practice that we've used. We try and, again, that routine, I think Carly mentioned that kind of set routine where these are the meetings I have to be in, and then I have this time to do work. Because ultimately, we're rewarded by finding the best tech talent for our clients. So we don't really want to tie all of our recruiters up in meetings talking about how do we find more people. We want them out there doing their job. And the list is, very similar for if the flip side, if a candidate's going for an interview, how to conduct themselves. With the camera, we had one individual get up, walk around the room, and basically, you couldn't hear him, you couldn't see him, and that was the end of that opportunity for that person. So, stay focused. Back to the distraction piece that Tina had mentioned. Try and limit that, and really focus on that camera, focus on that opportunity, and focus on the conversation.
Mind if I add something to that?
Sure.
So something else with when you are holding these meetings, you talked about having the cameras on, but I think it's easy, as you both mentioned, with distraction, is needing to stick to an agenda. And so sometimes, whether that's screen sharing, a SharePoint, document, or a collaborative online doc that everyone can add in, what are they going to talk about today? And everyone sticks to that. Maybe someone does meeting minutes. There's lots of tools out there that allow you to do that, whether you're using an Outlook tool or you're using a Google Drive or something like that. And I think following an agenda, even for small meetings, helps to make sure that at the end of that meeting, there was a purpose, you got to the point, and it was successful, and it's not where people leave going, oh, that could have been an email, that that this was a meaningful and important interaction, and it was necessary to be a meeting. And I think also asking people to write up their agenda items in advance, sometimes you do realize maybe we don't need to have a meeting. We could use this time to work. Looks like we got our points out. We could just email our bullets to each other. And then I thought of one other thing when you were asking about best practices, and like with sharing the personal anecdotes at the beginning of a meeting. My previous company that I worked for had virtual coffee hours every week for all our international staff. So I was the only one located in the US. People were located all around the world. And we would all have, no matter what time zone we were, we would have like a tea, a coffee, some of them would have a beer, and because it was their evening, and we would just talk and have that interaction that you would get when you're in the break room at work, but now you can't have that because you're in a virtual environment. So have that camaraderie, that interaction, so you don't feel so isolated and alone. And I think that interaction is also important in the workplace.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kim, I've got a couple of things to add, unless you have a question for me.
I do. You were actually next up, and it might actually segue right into what you were going to say. So let's see if we can merge the two. So we've talked a little bit about culture and so forth, but when we talk about how do you ensure that everyone on the team is doing okay? Are virtual team happy hours the best way, one-on-ones? And I think you have some key learnings from a recent Amplify event that you can share.
Right. So Amplify had a coffee clutch, and we talked with a group of about, 25 people, and listened to what they wanted out of the meeting, like what has their experience been? Have they been experiencing some Zoom fatigue? What are their pet peeves when it comes to meetings or working online? And during this time, it's a little bit different than I've worked with a lot of companies who have a global presence. So what Carly was saying about the coffee time, it's a great idea, but there's so many challenges that are complicating what we're trying to accomplish. So, and even like the internal meetings, the 15-minute meeting or the 10-minute meeting or the longer update, there's two things that I see organizations transitioning to. They have a bias for when there are more than 5 people in a meeting, they have a bias for trying to figure out if we really need a meeting or if there's another way we can deliver information. How many people actually have to report in and present? How much discussion actually needs to occur? Can there be a different format? Can it be a presentation that people can consume on their own? And can it be produced in really engaging way. Like this recording of this meeting, good, but I would be challenged to listen to it without the interaction after the event, right? Like it's just kind of dry stuff. It's not, doesn't have the same power as what it did live. So keep that in mind. Also explore apps, because like I may have a toddler come and join me this afternoon and you may get to see her. Our granddaughter is here. There's so many unscheduled events that families are juggling. And so an app like Marco Polo, or sending some video updates that people can consume and then add to, also helps. One-on-ones with your manager or the people that you work closest to are great. The social things, there's a trend, they're going to all optional, right? So people who want to join in can, but people who are burnt out or have to work on homework with their kids or whatever it may be, care for a sick loved one or neighbor, they can opt out without feeling any guilt or shame. So it's really important from a culture perspective, an organization culture perspective. Carly, you were right on. What's the purpose? And I would say, what's the out? So the purpose is really the result you want from the meeting. I would add on a layer and say, what is it that we want to do for our people? Like how do we want them to connect, feel, and engage? Because everybody feels a little disconnected, a little overcommitted. There's definitely a high desire to get things done and feel productive and, all kinds of positive things. But there's also this sense of overwhelm. So how do we ease that? How do we balance things out? And I've seen organizations get real creative with that. So there's a lot of possibilities. I would say have a meeting about how we can be more creative about meetings and what can we do in lieu of a meeting? What would work? What could work differently?
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So while we're talking about meetings, Carly, with your background within the educational space, how do you set expectations for professionals and educators and students during a virtual meeting? So, if I'm a teacher in the classroom, the students come in, I have them for a set amount of time. I know what the curriculum is that we have to get through, but how do we translate that into a virtual environment?
I think that's challenging, and it really varies depending on the age group. So I used to be an elementary teacher, and then more recently I've been teaching higher ed. I still teach at Marquette University as an adjunct instructor. And this semester I'm fully online. Last spring I started in person and then went online in March. And so I can really only speak to working virtually with college age students, because I never had that experience when I worked with third and fourth graders. But with college age students, yes, expectations was really important. And I talked to them about a lot of things that you would maybe talk to your staff about, but sometimes they needed a little bit more, a few more reminders about making sure that your background is ready, that your sound is appropriate. And sometimes that's hard for them. They may be sharing a dorm room and there's another person in the room. Maybe they're at home and they have all their siblings running around. They don't have a quiet space, or they don't have an office. And so, for them to do their best at finding a quiet space that's maybe free of clutter and distraction in order to focus. But I think that educators and those who are on the call may understand that we need to be empathetic for our students and understand that that's not always a realistic option for them. And to not get mad at them if they do have a sibling shouting in the background. Or I had one parents were yelling at their brother, and it was like, oh, please mute your mic, until they're done. And so not scolding them for those things, because sometimes it's out of their control. But I think reminding them of professional etiquette that all of us are trying to follow, in terms of, if we have a laptop, we're able to use a camera, but many of my students don't have a personal computer. They used to use the computers on campus. They're not on campus, so they're using their phone. And so, you know, trying to tell them, okay, prop your phone up, maybe don't hold it and walk around and shake with it. But I think we have to be a lot more flexible when it comes to being an educator in terms of our expectations for what will a virtual meeting look like with our students, and understanding that they're all facing their own traumas and challenges right now, and that this may be even more difficult for them than it is for us to switch to a virtual setting.
Thank you. So Bob and Jerry, I'm going to come back to the two of you, because Carly mentioned, you know, students walking around with their iPhones and so forth, and we've had some conversation around, you know, what are we seeing here in the background, or hearing in the background, and that kind of brings up the question of physical security as it relates to cyber security. So what are some physical security best practices we can think of when we're working remote?
So I always go by a little doctrine I call the clean desk policy. So if I have hard copy versions of documents, I make sure I have a place to keep them safe and secure. If I have a whiteboard in the room where I'm working and the camera can see the whiteboard, I make sure that I'm very careful about how I position the camera. It also, you have to understand what else is around you. In my house, it's me and Mrs. Turner, and I have doors on the office. I keep those closed. She's out in the main house doing what she does, and I'm in here in the office, and we don't have any leakage that happens there. But everybody doesn't have that opportunity. Some people are set up at their kitchen table. Some people are set up on a patio or a deck if the weather is nice. You just have to be aware of that environment, and you have to be taking the precautions to make it as much like your office at work as possible. And then, of course, you know, when you're disposing of paper goods, or even, you know, thumb drives or everything, anything that can hold data, you just have to be careful how you're getting rid of it. We have a shredder in the office here at home, and I make sure that the things that I write my notes on, once I've transferred those notes to a format where they're not going to escape, I shred the paper.
And I can imagine something like that would be important for our teachers to be doing if they are downloading documents that they're grading. Make sure that those go through a shredder or are somehow disposed of, so that that personal information is not released or retrieved by people who might use it to somebody's detriment.
And it's also when you get up and you take a break, or you get up to you know, refill your coffee cup or do anything else, do you lock your workstation? Every workstation that is, you know, normally configured, you should be able to lock it, so you have to use your personal credentials to get back in.
And that's a good note. I recall a time when I was working at Kimberly-Clark. I had been sent to Oregon to educate a company that we had recently acquired. Bunch of PhDs worked very closely together in a small research facility, and I had to do some desktop training on them. Well, we used single sign-on, which meant that you know, if I left my laptop open, they could get in and reroute my paycheck to their bank account within about 2 clicks if they knew where to go. I had to actually use that example when I was explaining to them why they needed to lock their computers when stepping away from them, because that was not a culture that they had. You know, they were used to leaving them open because Bob might need to come and run an assay, and well, my computer's already connected to the machine, so why not, right? But it's a practice we all need to be doing, not only at work, but also with our own home laptops, because, you know, if I leave my laptop up here and you were to come visit me, you could possibly get to my banking information, and That would not be good for Kim or her family.
I have been given special skills, but I only use them for good, not evil.
We appreciate that, Bob. All right. We're kind of running through my questions, and we're not far from the time where we would go and be able to break out to our, I can't talk. We're not far from the calendared moment when we should be going to the breakout rooms. So I'm gonna just I've got one more question here that I'm gonna kind of put towards Bob and Jerry. I know you pulled together some information that we will actually be sharing with the group when we come back from our break. I don't know, Bob, Jerry, do you want to share a little bit about the information in the documents that you've provided to us about cyber hygiene and so forth?
Well, I did, and I will give credit to a friend of mine. Sandra Stibbards, out in wherever she is today. She does investigations and forensics and things. So she gets credit for part of it, and we work together. Again, that's a collaboration. I think when I talk to people, we talk about changing the password on your router, making, if you can, have a guest network for those that come in, and they can, especially if you're doing like online shopping or things like that, and so on. But here's one that a friend of mine, David Cadgigal, told me one day is, if you have young children, the bad guys really aren't after my identity. The Office of Personnel Management gave away 10 years of my life. I think the Chinese have it right now, amongst others. And I see heads nodding for those that are part of that. I can't do anything about that. It's gone. But if I have children, and bad guys really like to steal the identity of an infant because they can own it for years and years and years, and they can wreck that credit line. Do a credit check on kids. Tell your friends to do a credit check on their kids. It doesn't cost anything, and even think about freezing their credit so that you can protect them as they grow through their life. Most people don't think about it. There's this website we use, Have Been Pwned, that I put in there. It's an incredible database of all those emails that have been out there. And I saw Carly just wrote on the chat. When you think about PII online, personally identifiable information, websites, if you're a corporate website and a friend of mine had his contact phone number in there, not a really good thing to do. We use info@wictra.org as a contact, and we use software called Wufoo. So if you want to get a hold of me and you don't know who I am, it's filtered through another website, a third-party website. You don't have my information unless I actually know who you are. It's as simple as that. So I ran my home email on Have Been Pwned, and it popped about, good God, 10 or 12 breaches. But the password against it had not been compromised. So there's a couple of things I did on it there, and there's another one for businesses called staysafeonline.org. I know one of the people out there, David Elliott. He was in the National Governors Association in the cyber side. And again, it goes to, there are sources out there online that you can get on and figure out, hey, I need to do this or I need to do that. But the biggest thing is phishing. If you're out there doing online shopping, and I think it's called River City Media or something like that, tens of millions of email accounts were compromised. And what do? They capture your information and sell it to vendors so that you get all the spam email that comes in. Well, guess what? The bad guys have it now, and so on. And Have Been Pwned will tell you really good information about that. Adobe's another one that was a huge one. And the other thing, today is Patch Tuesday for those of us in the business. I wrote a note. There are 87 patches by Microsoft today, and 12 of those are critical and 74 are classified as important. Patch your computers. Microsoft actually announced that this is the day so that people in CISOs and network people, this is a regularly scheduled patch. Go in almost every day and patch your computers. Check. That's it.
Thank you. All right.
I just put a link in the chat area, and it's an organization called Safe and Secure Online, and it's really targeting households with children and school age folks there. There's a lot of good resources in there, checklists that you can go through to make sure that your environments are relatively safe, and it works for adults too. So go ahead and check that out.
All right. Well, thank you for that. All right, we're going to go to our breakout rooms here in just a moment. We have had a number of folks who've had to jump off for other meetings due to conflicts, so we appreciate their time here with us. We do have about 30 minutes left, and we're going to take 15 minutes of that to go into our breakout rooms. You've all been pre-assigned, and this is your opportunity to have a small one-on-one conversation or small group conversation with one of the panelists. Ask the questions you want. Feel free to open up your mics at this point in time, or open up your, and use the chat window if you are more comfortable with that. And then when we come back, each of the panelists will share 2 to 3 of the top discussion items that was brought up in your session. So I'm going to ask Caitlin if you'll go ahead and open up the breakout rooms now, and we'll see you all on the other side. I had some good conversations in each of your sessions. I see. Guys, got Grace and back.
Yeah, they were going. There was a good session, breakout session. Thank you.
And we've got Tina back. So looks like we've lost a few folks along the way.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if Sarah and Scott are here. Yeah. Okay.
Yep,
So they are. Okay. In our room, the theme was really how do I manage burnout kind of feeling, and how do I move away from work? Like, I am drawn to my work and I am going to focus on my work and work all the damn time. So how do I not do that was part of it. How do I prioritize it? So it was a self-care and boundaries were the 2 things we focused on, and we came up with some good ideas.
I love it. Thank you, Tina. So Bob, how about your room?
Yeah, I think we had we had probably 6 or 7 different subjects going, but the real focus was working from home and what are the things that are unique to our situations. I was able to talk to them about how I at the end of the day I walk out the door and work stays here. Yeah, it's inside the same house, but we're able to do that. And then we had some kind of interesting discussions about kind of cultural differences, not only between us, but also between areas. We were ending up the discussion about some of the travels I have taken and some of the ways that politics and religion of different countries affects the way they secure themselves, their businesses and their workspace.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. John, what did your group talk about? Oh, I think you're muted.
That was a very fast 15 minutes. We got to know each other a little bit. We just talked about each other's organizations and who we worked for. We got an update on the campus situation, COVID campus situation at UW Oshkosh, which was good. Their COVID rate has gone down tremendously. We talked about the competition for not only for local people here, but also folks from other parts of the nation, now that there is this push for, or more people are working virtually. So the borders have kind of come down, but there's still challenges remaining when you're talking about employing folks from all over the nation. And then, are you working virtual? Are you going into the office? That was a quick conversation as well.
Excellent, thank you. And Carly, how about your room?
One of the main things we talked about was how do you engage folks in a virtual call and not sort of lose their attention, and whether that is in a virtual classroom or a virtual meeting. And so one of the things we talked about, besides having cameras on, was offering opportunities for them to engage in ways that they feel comfortable. So we talked about introverts and how they may not want to have their camera on, but allowing them to use the chat feature like we have been in this meeting. And also when people, one of the things we talked about was when you say, hey, does anyone have any questions? And all you hear are crickets. What do you do? And so I suggested that you prepare some thoughtful discussion questions in advance in order to spur conversation and say, what was the key takeaway of what I said? Or what did I say today that surprised you that you're going to remember, or something like that, in order to help facilitate that conversation and really get them engaged. We also shortly talked about Zoom has features like a polling option. And so being able to break up your presentation with videos, PowerPoint, in person, and polling, or different ways to kind of keep bringing them back to the screen and keep their attention span.
It's interesting you brought that up, because in cleaning out my basement, one never knows what one will find. I found my virtual presentation skills guide book from when I took the class at Kimberly-Clark, probably close to a decade ago. And some of those same, asking leading questions kinds of things were in there, and how to deal with silence were actually called out in there. So I thumbed through that a little bit in preparation for today's meeting. I'd completely forgotten I had it. Had to clean off about a 1/4 inch of dust, though.
I broke the code because I'm wearing plaid.
I almost wore houndstooth today, Sarah.
Can't do that. You're not supposed to wear plaid.
So,
You're supposed to wear polka dots, supposed to wear solid colors. I remember that class very well.
Yeah, so Sarah used to be my boss at Kimberly-Clark, so she knows.
Years ago, right? All those
the training is paying off. All right, so Jerry, your group, I felt so bad because I think we cut you off mid-sentence with the countdown timer.
Oh, that's okay. We could have talked a lot. We kind of, because I had 2 educators in my room, we quickly funneled down into that and talked about some ways, some of the things that we do for cyber training. And I think what need an innovative way to look at this is, how can we integrate the K-12 kids and, let's say a college or a tech university with the college kids, so that the K-12s kind of understand what happens during their 2 or 4 year education cycle, and then bring in mentors and coaches from the professional field so that they get a chance to look at the college kids, they get a chance to look at some of these up and coming high schoolers. Maybe they look at them from an internship possibility. One of our individuals at a credit union gets high school interns in his IT section, and they do help desk stuff, all kinds of different things. And it's very economical labor in that sense, that it's a paid internship. So how do we integrate that in such a way that these younger kids, and I'm kind of looking at the Boys and Girls Club as an opportunity as well. We have one here in Berlin where I live, and I know the director personally. I can take things down there and these kids can learn on these in a safe environment and learn about cybersecurity, or, you know, and we can, you know, do an assessment and say, hey, yeah, this person's interested. Let's foster that. For example, I have a high school kid around the block who I gave a micro range to because I want to foster him to learn about cybersecurity, and he's already, quote, a nerd. Let's take him to the next level. And so those are some ideas that we talked about.
Yeah, so thank you. That's great. And I can imagine, you know, hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, but I can imagine there might be some opportunities too for some of our local employers who might be looking to skill up or refresh skills for their cyber teams to maybe reach out to WICTRA and look at some opportunities to bring the cyber range to their organizations.
Yeah, we make it very simple. It's Jerry proof. I can run it by myself, and I am by no means a nerd. Bob, I think you can attest to that. We've taken it to the UW-Madison event a couple times and had great success there.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys for sharing out. We've got just a couple of items left here that I want to, you know, make sure we get to. So first off, thank you all for participating today, and thank you panelists for your time and sharing your knowledge. Truly appreciate it. I know we had a number of people who dropped off, but they all, I saw in the comments, were thanking us for the information. I did see a few of you have started sharing your LinkedIn information in the chat as well. So if you're looking to connect, you know, please feel free to share your LinkedIn profiles through that mechanism. Coming up, we have our new Connect IT event coming up soon. Registration is open for high school students and college students, and we are looking for volunteers. So dates and times are up here, and you'll find them out on our site as well. There are some links that are being shared with you right now to some of the documentation too. And volunteers will be sitting on a panel and speaking to their roles and or programs at the higher eds. So if you're interested, please reach out. And then upcoming dates. I mentioned this earlier. This is Cybersecurity Month. So, you know, we learned a lot. Thank you to Bob and Jerry for their cyber knowledge. And thank you to the other panelists as well, as they were touching on some of those elements too. November is our new Connect IT series. The week of December 7th through 13 is Computer Science Education Week. We'll be working with TEALS and hopefully through code.org. We'll try and help get the word out about any needs that they have as far as volunteers to help make that week successful from what will likely be a virtual or more virtual event than has historically been. January 14th is our next quarterly meeting. We will share a little bit of updates on where the Alliance is, but then again, we'll have a professional development element to that meeting as well. And then coming up in March, we will be sending out our new survey round to our K-12, higher ed, and employers. So please look for those surveys and you know, send us your responses, because that helps us help you know where we're tracking in the region and helps us identify areas of opportunity where we can step in and help out with some initiatives. And that's a wrap. So thank you everybody for coming. I hope you all got something you could take away today, and we look forward to seeing you at future events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.